Welcome in to another live edition of House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me as always is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. Gilbert, are you ready to preview this? What a matchup of one and two teams, the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams.
I am, but I gotta be honest. I'm not too excited about this one because the Bears have just been an eyesore to watch since their chaotic Week 1 victory against the Tennessee Titans, and even that game was ugly. They just had a nice comeback, but hey, I'm sure Rams fans want the Bears to keep struggling, and yeah, I did not enjoy that Colts Bears game. I did not enjoy that Texans Bears game. They just can't get anything offensively, but we'll talk about it. And maybe that's good
Yes.
news for the Rams fans here watching today. But still, a good test on the road. 10 a.m. body Pacific time for the people here in the West Coast to be out there in the Midwest. The Rams are 0-2 on the road, so yeah, a lot of obstacles to overcome. But so I shouldn't diminish this game too much. It's just the Bears are just boring to watch.
Yeah, and this was a matchup that everybody was looking forward to when the schedule came out. You had a high power offense, you know, everybody thinking that the Rams would be healthy at this point, and then same with the Bears, and now they have a quarterback for the first time in a long time, and things haven't gone as planned for both teams, and we'll get into that. We got a lot to get into, Gilbert. As you mentioned, we have the latest news and notes, plus matchups to watch, storylines for both teams, keys to the game, and our game prediction. But before we get to our game preview, Gilbert, do you have a engagement question for our viewers and listeners today?
Yes, I do. For the engagement question of the week. It's kind of a question that we ask ourselves when we do these game previews. So let me know, listeners and viewers of House of Horns, if you're watching through Combats on the Beat, feel free to jump in. And I guess what's the biggest key for the Rams to win this first road game here? Like I mentioned, they're 0-2. They fell short in overtime in Detroit. A very ugly game in Arizona. So we'll see if they'll get their first one on the road. Again, that Bears defense is better. The offensive line, pretty much, the team is a good team for the Bears. It's just the offensive line doesn't let the offense do anything. So that's the biggest weaknesses there. So, hey, maybe the biggest key is apply pressure on that terrible offensive line and make life miserable for Caleb Williams, which has been the case for the last 3 weeks here. So, but you have a better key to the game. We want to hear. We want you to be engaged in the show. So let us know in the comments if you're watching the replay. Let us know in the comments of the replay too.
Yeah, let us know. We want to know what are the biggest keys to the Rams winning their first road game. They start off the season with three road games and then one home game so far. So, what is it going to take for them to win that first game? And, we'll get into it. We'll break down this matchup as we talked about. But, Gilbert, one last thing as we move on is we got to get to news and notes first. There is some positive news that finally it looks like the clouds have finally opened up and the sun has come out for the Rams because getting to Rams news and notes plus the injury report. Sean McVay said on Monday, Gilbert, that no new injuries came out of Sunday's game.
Oh,
So yes, so no new injuries to report on. So that was good to see. And when I tell you the when I tell you the injury report, you're gonna be like, wow, that's compared to what the Chicago Bears have. I was I was like, it looked like a CBS receipt there, Gilbert, with the Bears. So it's good to see that the Rams don't have as many injuries on their injury report. The other thing to Gilbert, more positive news. Cooper Cup is out of the cast, and Puka Nakua was at practice working with the strength and conditioning staff on the side there. So more good news. It looks like both of those guys are trending to returning. We don't know as of yet when. It sounds like Cooper Cup is going to be back sooner rather than later, and then we'll find out about Puka because he's still on IR and he's got to miss at least 4 weeks or 4 games.
yeah, obviously, or I'm pretty sure they won't get both of those wide receivers. You mentioned Puka Nacua is already out. I'll be very surprised if Cooper Cup plays in this game. But hey, if you're able to hold it down without those two receivers again and win in Chicago and you go 2-2, it kind of buys them time to hey, like relax and get ready and recuperate and don't rush Cooper Cup, who was not on the injury reserve. That's the last thing you want to do is re-aggravate that injury. So that's good news. And again, for a team that's very thin, you don't want to add more injuries. So that's actually a big time break that they've got right there.
Yeah, and things are starting to look up for it. And tight end Davis Allen, who's missed the last couple games, was back practicing this week in a limited capacity, so he should be on the mend soon. And then last thing, Gilbert, in terms of news and notes, the Rams' top two pick, Jared Verse and Braden Fiske, ranked first and second in pressures among rookies. Fisk actually leads all rookies with 12, and
Wow.
Verse is right behind in second with 11. So I thought that was pretty. That was a kind of eye opening thing. Seeing Fisk be the number one guy in pressures for the rookies on defense.
Yeah, that's a good thing, especially in this transition year without Aaron Donald. I'm sure it helps having Kobe Turner next to you. It helps having Byrie Young do what he did a week ago. It helps having Jerry Verse, his teammate at Florida State. So he's getting a good amount of help, but also it's not easy to create pressure in the interior of the defensive line. I know today's football is a little easy. I'm not sure to say easier, but it's a lot of very dominant defensive tackles that know how to
Yeah.
create pass rush from that spot. So maybe he's learned from the best or watching tape. Whatever he's doing is working. So through 3 games, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, especially for those two guys to come in as rookies, and they needed them just because of all the injuries, and then the way the secondary hasn't lived up to to their part. I think that's been really good to see both Verse and Fisk come in, and they traded up for Fisk for a reason, and he's paid dividends so far through 3 games, Gilbert. And then on the injury report, this is where it gets even more positive. They only have 3 guys on the injury report, Gilbert, for the Rams. Cooper Cup, who did not practice with an ankle. Davis Allen was limited, and Logan Bruss was a full participant today with a finger. But so everything's starting to look good for the Rams in terms of the injury bug. And then, like I said, the Bears just have a laundry list of players on the injury report. Let me start off with Zach Pickens. He's got a groin injury. He did not. These are all that did not practice today. So you got Zach Pickens with the groin, Terrell Smith with the hip, Darrell Taylor with an illness, Darnell Wright with the back. And then limited was Keenan Allen with the heel, Andrew
Mm.
Billings with the knee, Kareem Blessing Game with the hand and knee, Nate Davis, Braxton Jones with the knee, and Montez Sweat with an elbow. So they got a
Wow.
lot of dudes on the injury report there. Any name that sticks out to you?
Well, obviously Montez Sweat and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen for Caleb Williams is going to be big because we saw what Keenan Allen did for Justin Herbert, for Philip Rivers, for so many years with the Chargers. He is a target friendly for a quarterback. He makes life easier for a quarterback when you need a play on the money downs to move the chain. He gets open, he makes a play, reliable hands, and they haven't really had that. It's tough to even say if Keenan Allen was on that field to help him out, like would have made a difference because the offensive line can't do anything. But when you rely more on when you have a terrible offensive line, you rely on the short throws, uh, good chemistry, good rhythm, good timing. That's what we saw with Aaron Rodgers on Thursday Night Football against the Patriots. Like, hey, maybe the O line stinks or whatever, and you can't really move around, but you got to be quick, release that throw quickly. And guys like Keenan Allen make all the difference in the world. Who they get open very quickly. So he's not the fastest guy, but he runs some of the prettiest routes I've ever seen. Covering him in the NFL, so that's gonna be big if he does. If he's able to play, he missed the last 2 games, so maybe he's ready to go. Montez Sweat, you never know. It's limited, so it's probably too early, anyways. He'll probably be fine, but the Bears defense will definitely take a hit if he's not available.
Yeah, especially coming off the edge there, and then with the offensive line now kind of being healthy with the guys that they have right now, that'll be something to look at, and we'll talk about that as we get to key matchups. But before we move on to Rams and Bears storylines, Gilbert, let me get to these comments. It's awesome to see everybody on here. Our usual guys are on us again, Gilbert. James Wheelock says steady running game, contain Caleb Williams and keep him in the pocket. So that is one way that he's saying that that'll be a key for the Rams to win their first road game. Stevan says key to the game, run game, complete the pressuring of the quarterback with actual sacks. That's, that would be nice for them to finally get some sacks. we'll get to that. Daniel Calderon says, "What up, y'all? What's going on, Daniel? It's good to see you as always." He
What's
says,
up, Daniel?
"Chicago can be a sneaky L for us. Our cornerbacks give up some big plays. Roma Dunce is playing decent." And especially with Keenan Allen, that'll
Mm.
be a challenge as well, Gilbert, as you mentioned. Happy Gilmer says, "What's up, buddies? Hey, what's going on, Happy? Good to have you on with us as always." And then he says, "All right, y'all, good night. Have a good night. Go Rams." So it looks like it was a short appearance there from
Yeah,
Daniel. So
gotta go.
gotta go. Thank you for being with us for that short time. Hopefully, you check out the rest of the episode later on. All right, Gilbert, it's time to get to Rams and Bears storylines. And I started. You cover the NFL, as a whole, and so you know what's going on with the Bears. But one of the things I was able to kind of gather this week in terms of in preparation for this preview was. Um, Matt Eberflus is in his third year, and one of the things that Bears fans are really upset about is the fact that it seems like things haven't progressed with this coaching. There was a couple of big mistakes that were made in that game against the Colts on Sunday that really fired up the fan base with the Bears, and like calling some timeouts, not knowing whether to go for two, sending your field goal team out there, and it's just gotten to the point where the frustration with starting the season 1 and 2 after the talent that you put assemble that you've been able to assemble. It just seems that that a lot of the fan base is starting to give up on him. So let me start off with this in terms of a question here. Does Eberflus need to take accountability for the Bears start to the season, and how long is his leash here going forward?
Yeah, this will be, I think, year 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And honestly, like, if the whole game management wasn't as messy, he might have been fine because the defense does perform well for him. He is one of the few, I shouldn't say few, but I feel like a lot of times these defensive minded coaches struggle to be head coaches. But hey, if you get the defense going and they're on track, and that kind of gives you an extra year, and that's what happened with Matt Eberflus. I thought the defense played great last year, especially when they got Montez Sweat. So I think last year was like, hey, you couldn't give me the guys, and you finally gave me somebody, and look what I did. And for the most part, this defense is still very good. It's just the offensive line's not helping them out at all. Like you can't keep asking your defense to bail you out for three quarters, 3 quarters and a half, or maybe get lucky when, or they pretty much did it themselves in week one. Special teams and defense scored touchdowns. So his offense is not doing anything. So Eberflus could be like, hey, Ryan Poles, you're the one giving me this crappy offensive line. You're the one that drafted Darnell Wright. You're the one that wanted Roman Duzia. We could have drafted Olu Fushanu or Fuaga from the Saints, but you wanted another wide receiver. That was your call. I'm sure they had kind of a group thinking there, but at the end of the day, that is his pick. Uh, Things like that. But when you are the one on the field with like the timeouts, going for two, things like that, that's your department, Matt Eberflus. So if you can't get that right, then yeah, you might start feeling the pressure because if you're a good coach, if you're a good coach of situations and using your timeouts wisely, and you have the defense clicking, then you can put all the blame on the GM and the offensive line. But not you can't do that if you're going to be screwing up critical moments there. So but I feel for Matt Eberflus because the defense is, playing their butt off. They're doing very well. We'll see if they get Montez Sweat. I did a quick Google search. I think he might be okay, but they're still performing, and it's just not fair to his defense that they can't protect the whole line. And that's one of the biggest mysteries for me because Ryan Poles did use a first round pick on Darnell Wright last year, the right tackle. He just hasn't done anything. He spent
Yeah.
money on Nate Davis. The Chicago fan base is tired of Nate Davis. So when he was on the
Yep.
injury report, I'm sure they don't care. They probably don't care about Darnell Wright being on the injury report. And also Braxton Jones, he was kind of like the surprise pick, the third or fourth round 2 years ago as a rookie. Hasn't done squat since then. So they have invested on the online. They're just not getting them right. Maybe that could go back to Eberflus. You're not coaching them up. So
Right.
there's going to be some clash there where I feel like maybe say it does go sideways and the season's over. I feel like Ryan Poles might be the one that has more of a, I guess, more of a leash here because he got the Panthers to give him all those assets
Yeah.
to him, DJ Moore. being one, getting Caleb Williams being another. But if Jaden Daniels keeps going off the way he's been going, it's going to be 2 years in a row, Victor, where they said, no thanks, CJ Stroud. Here's the pick, Carolina. And then also, no thanks, Jaden Daniels will take Caleb Williams. You screwed up the quarterback twice. Maybe. It's way too soon to say that. I see
Yeah.
the narratives are already being built up out there. But I thought it was a good sign that Caleb Williams he battled last week. He got maybe 380 something yards, a lot of garbage time yardage there, but to fight back and battle was a good sign for him. But it's not looking good because there was a lot of expectations in Chicago. You got that roster the way you wanted it. You got Caleb Williams. You fleeced the Panthers, and so far, whatever Ryan Poles did to make this roster work, not working offensively. Eberflus, you're screwing it up with your coaching. So yeah, I get why Chicago fan base is so annoyed right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought he deserved another year, especially with, Justin Fields not being the quarterback that he inherited. Justin Fields, and then you fire Luke Getzey, and then you think, okay, now I'm gonna get my own. I'm gonna bring in another offensive coordinator, and that's where my next question comes into play for you here, Gilbert, and that has to do with Shane Waldron. Now,
Yeah.
we've seen Dave Canales and what he's been able to do. Now, it seems like from the outside that, you tell me whether I'm right or wrong here, that Shane Waldron got a lot of the praise that, probably should have gone to Dave Canales, because Dave Canales was the quarterback coach in Seattle. And and Shane Waldron got a lot of that praise for what he did with Geno Smith. Then you see Dave Canales go and do that with Mayfield, and now he's doing that with Andy Dalton, as we saw them destroy the Raiders on Sunday. So my question here is, how much of the Bears' problems on offense fall on on the new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron?
A good amount, but also it's tough to implement your scheme after 3 games. So I want to be, I guess, aware of that, and also when the offensive line is not doing well. But again, it's like Eberflus, Waldron, you're the one coaching them up on the offensive line. Maybe you are more concerned with the way the offense is going to run and scheming up plays, and you have an offensive line coach for that reason. But this offensive line hasn't been good in a good amount of years. You're supposed to help that area and improve it. And yeah, we saw the trend when Dave Canales left Geno Smith. Geno Smith wasn't that good last year. I know
Yeah,
people are saying that it wasn't his fault. They disappointed in 2023, but he wasn't the same Geno as 22. Obviously, they had a lot of other issues there, which I get why Geno got another year. But he regressed a little bit. Like we could keep it real there, and that's maybe it's not a coincidence that Dave Canales left, and that happened. Shane Waldron's, I think it was the rookie receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba, who did not pull any punches when talking about Shane Waldron and him leaving, and he kind of seemed like he was relieved that they got Ryan Grubb and Waldron's on the way out. That's not a good look either. So,
yeah,
now he goes to Chicago. But again, I don't want to, criticize him too much for 3 games here, and especially when the offensive line, like you just can't get anything going when the offensive line doesn't play that well. But then again, you see David Canales, who had a crappy old line, and you put in the quarterback, and it made all the difference in the world. So sometimes you can scheme it up. Same thing with Sean McVay last week against the 49ers. You got to scheme it up when you got the bad old line. So that could fall on Waldron there. It could fall on Caleb Williams. I don't want to just point all the blame on the offensive line, but they look like the worst unit in the NFL. So it's a lot of things that are not going well for the offense, and I'm sure a lot of players are frustrated. And you go back to why did they spend a draft pick on Roma Duzia when you had DJ Moore and Keenan Allen? Did you really need another wide receiver? So I think a lot of people were kind of wondering what the heck happening here, who's to blame, and that's why you have talks about Matt Eberflus being out, Shane Waldron being out, things like that. But it's too early.
yeah,
I'm not trying to give the Bears too much credit. They did battle, and I think they got a good scoring drive at the end, and then the defense actually let them down when they couldn't stop Jonathan Taylor. So, but after like 3.5 quarters, I'm like, oh, here we're gonna wake up. Like it's not easy for the defense to kind of be like, okay, well, let me be perfect for 4 quarters here.
yeah.
So, it's just something they gotta have to get off to a better start, and I guess for them, they're probably trying to do that with the Rams.
Yeah, I just like looking at this. I can go and I'm not gonna go too much in depth because I really want to get into the storyline for the Rams. But one of the things that really stood out about the whole Shane Waldron situation was the fact too that, you know we don't when we talk about the McVay tree, we never bring up Shane Waldron, and he's part of the Sean McVay coaching tree. And one of the things that Shane does that really not only has frustrated the Seahawks fan base, but also the Bears fan base now through 3 games is the fact that he likes to call a lot of pass plays, and sometimes he forgets to run the ball. And it's something that Sean McVay does a lot. Rams fans can attest to that.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand that it's a passing league now, but as we've talked about with the too high safety look now, you have to run the ball. You bring in a running back, and you don't even use them, and the best way you can protect your rookie quarterback is by running the ball. And I get it. If the offensive line isn't creating any holes, but at the same time, if you're abandoning the run early, then you're gonna get your rookie, killed out there. And
Hmm.
especially when you're spending a number 1 pick. One of the things that I heard today that I thought was really spot on is like Caleb Williams is what we would have seen of Patrick Mahomes had Patrick Mahomes had to play in that first year. Letting Patrick Mahomes sit for that year behind Alex Smith really helped them, and I think not doing that with Caleb Williams, we're gonna see what ends up happening because Patrick Mahomes was able to thrive, not having to play that first season. And now with Caleb Williams, we're gonna see what would have happened with Patrick Mahomes, how you have to throw him in day one.
That was always my biggest concern with Caleb Williams is he has too many gifts, too many skills outside the pocket. He knows how to throw from different angles, off platform throws. Sling it down the field. Like all the comparisons were Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and we know why because he can make plays out of something out of nothing. And you don't want to be doing too much when you're a rookie quarterback. Also, a Bears team that hasn't done squat in the last few years. At least Mahomes got to work with Andrew Reid's Chiefs, and they were a playoff team for a few years with Alex Smith. And also second to the two quarterbacks right there, Rodgers and Mahomes. What's in common? They sat for the first or 2 years.
Yeah.
So when you want to be this, magician maestro guy, you got to learn. Before you do that, and I think he got 2 interceptions last week against the Colts, 2 interceptions against the Texans. He probably got one against the Titans. I can't remember that one, but
He's
he's
been
do
sacked 13 times already, Gilbert.
he presses, and that really test being sacked and seeing all that. It really it puts it really tests your patience to be like, okay, well, I know I have these skills, I know I have these gifts to get out of the pocket, but sometimes it's okay to throw the football away. That's why Rogers at 40 years old, learned to adjust that he can't be this creator away from the pocket. So you got to be rhythm and timing. You got to be quick, get that ball out very quickly, and that's where really applies with Shane Waldron. When you have a guy who schemes it up for you easily to hear, just dump it off right there. That's a good marriage, and they haven't had that from both sides.
Yeah.
It's hard because you're seeing guys coming at you, and you don't want to get to a point where Bryce Young was always looking down and not looking upfield because there was just so much pressure. Like, uh, you know, it's way too soon to compare that, but that'd be kind of ironic if Caleb Williams and Bryce Young have similar kind
Yeah,
of
and
situations.
because they're on the same trajectory with how things are going. All right, Gilbert. Before we move on to
Yeah.
the Ram storylines here, let's get to some of these. Let's get to some of these comments. We got Ramily Ty says horns up. Ramily. Steve Vaughn says impressive Bears knowledge by Gilberto, but he couldn't remember Zach Evans' name during the preseason.
He doesn't even play. But
Yeah.
he does
Yeah,
have
he
a.
was like what, number 5 on the depth chart? Even I forgot about him
They
and
don't
my
run. They don't run the football. Come on, why do I need
yeah,
to learn about these running
yeah,
backs?
that's true. That is true, Steve. Michael Armenta says key to victory, balance attack, run and pass. So there we go. All right, storyline for the Rams. How do they go about fixing their secondary? Let me give you a
Oof.
stat that I saw. Let me make sure I attributed it to the correct person here before I go on. Uh, I want to make sure that I give the proper credit, and it is Rich Rybar on Twitter said that the opposing passers versus the Rams on throws 10 yards or more down the field through 3 games, Gilbert. 21 completions, which is 30th. 65.6% completion rate, which is 31st, 16.3 yards per attempt, which is 31st, six touchdowns allowed, which is last. No other team has more than three. So teams, as we've been saying, there's been a problem now for over a year. Even with Raheem Morris was the coach, they just continue to constantly get beat down the field, Gilbert. So how do they go about fixing the secondary?
I don't know. It's tough to get new defensive backs. It's tough to just. I guess you could always make a trade. But, everybody's making fun of this, Mel Kiper take about, getting rid of the cover 2 high shell. Well, maybe he's not watching Rams games. A lot of these quarterbacks are having their way against the Rams. Sorry, I couldn't resist there. But, yeah,
Yeah,
you saw Jawan Jennings going off for 3 touchdowns, Marvin Harrison Jr. for 2 touchdowns. You saw Jameson Williams for a touchdown. So, and even going back to last year, I know people were happy to see Terry McLaurin, have his moment in primetime, but Terry McLaurin lit up the Rams last year when the
so
Commanders came to SoFi Stadium. So I remember that Lamar Jackson game, that
yeah,
shootout in
OBJ.
Baltimore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
OBJ.
Odell Beckham. So it's been a thing for a while, and I know that Raheem Morris is not like a true disciple of the Vic Fangio scheme, but he was running some principles of it because of Brandon Staley being there before him. He kept some of it. So again, like I'm not trying to be a scheme guy, but I wonder how much he runs that Chris Shula, especially knowing that they can't protect it deep downfield. So maybe the players are just not getting it, and maybe it's kind of like, can you pick something? Because I know Shula and Raheem Morris had a way of blending different things there. Like, hey, you like this? Why I'm actually, I kind of came from this background, that background. So maybe that could be something there. I'm just looking for something because it's been a year, more than a year, or going into 2 seasons now where this has been an issue here. So something has to give. You know, you try getting players. You got some older players that didn't really work out. You got some injuries too that that didn't work out in your favor either. But I don't know, and everybody's kind of crapping on the Roman Duzier pick because everybody wants. It's hindsight's 2020, right? Everybody wants an offensive lineman now because the offensive line stinks. So maybe Duzier goes off this week. Actually, he got his touchdown last week. I remember Caleb Williams or Duzier couldn't figure out who gets
Yeah,
to keep the football for the first
right.
touchdown pass there. So maybe DJ Moore, one of the best down the field wide receivers in the league, gets going. And I know DJ Moore really wanted Justin Fields to stay. I wonder what he thinks and those deep thoughts of his about this situation so far. But those are two wide receivers that could burn you. If they get Keenan Allen back, that would definitely help out those two wide receivers. So they got to fix that. And if they
Yeah.
don't, I guess patch the leaks here or patch up the hole, you might find yourself in a tough game in Chicago.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, Gilbert, like I went back and I kind of saw a little bit more of the game against the 49ers, and some of the things that Chris Shula was running is he was pretty much like sometimes only sending three dudes out there because he
Yeah.
really wanted to keep everything in front of them, and they're just playing zone, and that's part of it too. But if you're playing zone and you're playing some of those coverage, whether it's a cover two or a cover three behind it, you can't get beat like that as you talked about. You have to be better with that. And I get it, when you had Jalen Ramsey, you could play that start position and you can just have him do that. But you saw Quinn Lake get mossed there by Jawan Jennings,
Mm.
Tre'Davious White he's probably been the one that has gotten torched the most out of everybody in that secondary, and I expected more from Camp Curl as well. Gilbert, we saw him in training camp, and he looked like he was moving around. Maybe he got hurt or something, and he's playing hurt, but it's been really disappointing to see. And we talked about the pressures from the rookies, Gilbert.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I have always worried about Cam Curl because he played on the worst secondary in the NFL last year, the Commanders.
Right.
So I'm like, why did you sign him? He was part of that, and maybe they saw something they could have utilized. But yeah, you're right, it hasn't worked.
Yeah, and as I talked about, like even the outside of Brendan Fisk, Jared Verse, and Byron Young, you haven't seen a lot of the other guys kind of step up. I was really impressed with the way Troy Reader played in that game against the 49ers. Part of it was they kind of they kind of keyed on several guys and they were able to take that away. But you can't continue to get beat deep like that. You have to correct that eventually, as we've talked about, and I get that, you're trying to make sure that you don't get you're trying to keep everything in front of you, trying to have teams, methodically go down the field and then, make it that way just because your talent isn't there. But I mean, even Michael Hoyt has some flashes last week, but the problem continues to be the fact that they keep getting beat deep. And they play the run great. I was expecting Jordan Mason to kill them, and they were able to stop the run there as well. So it's just they have to fix their secondary. I know Darius Williams, he's been hurt, and maybe when he comes back he helps the secondary, and that's how you go about it. But things need to change for this team to get better defensively, because you can't just rely on the offense to win games like they did against the 49ers. You need this defense to continue. Like last season, it was special teams. This year is that secondary, and they need to, start fixing that in order for them to, try to make another run at the playoffs this season.
Yeah, that defense got lucky last week. There was a drop pass there that on Brock Purdy's third down or fourth down play. I think it was fourth down, and then Jake Moody missed that field goal. So they got bailed out a couple of times for 49er mistakes there. So it wasn't like it was a terrific defense day, but it's also strange that they can't protect the deep ball when they're also getting pressured. Like you mentioned, all those numbers for the rookies and with the pressures. Byron Young had a great game last week. So
Yeah,
the I guess what do you want to call them, the Aaron Donald replacements are doing a good job, and it's just the linebackers aren't good, the secondaries. I know you mentioned Troy Reader was better, but they're lacking talent, and the secondary is not doing well. Cornerback, safety. I thought the safeties would be a little better.
yeah,
Uh, I like Quentin Lake because he talked to us, but he has too many up and down games. Cam Crow hasn't done much. We all thought Rhys East might be something. He got waived not too long ago. Tre'Davious White, I always worried about him being injured and coming back. He, like you mentioned, is being tortured on a weekly basis. So it's weird because they are getting pressure. They are playing zone. They are, trying to put a roof over the coverage there, and it's just not working.
yeah. And let me get to these comments here real quick before we move on. Steve Onsen, wasn't there some news today about Darius Williams? Yes, I just checked, and it sounds like McVay says that he's hopeful that he can return in week 5. So maybe next week he's back. And he says things should get a whole lot better when he and Witherspoon get on the field. So maybe even getting Witherspoon back on the field could help things out as well. Gilbert, I forgot about Witherspoon's. A good point by Steve On.
Yeah.
He did sign to the practice squad, but I'm assuming that he's going to get elevated to the roster on Sunday. And then we have James Wheelock. If you get beat with the zone defense, it totally defeats the purpose. Is to protect the big play. And yes, that's you shouldn't be getting beat like that all the time. I mean, it constantly happens to the Rams, and that shouldn't. And it's not a Chris Shula thing, because, as we said, it happened with Raheem Morris last season as well.
Yeah, we'll see what happens because they are facing DJ Moore in the Doomsday, and it's
Yeah.
something that's definitely on my radar.
All right, Gilbert. Let's move on to Rams and Bears players matchups. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I guess I could go first, and
Yep.
I kind of just copied yours because I think these are both good points and very critical. But uh, I just want to see more of the like the defensive front. If you have to save the day and carry it because the secondary is not going to help you out, and there's a lack of depth at linebacker, you got to impact the game more than just creating pressure. You got to have game changing plays. You got to have takeaways, a strip sack, a lot of sacks, tackles for loss. So. I want to see this Rams defense in front,
Hmm.
just destroy the Bears offensive line. They've been terrible. And even like you
Yeah.
mentioned, Victor, a lot of the players are hurt. They're dealing with injuries. So these guys are young, they're fresh, they're ready to make big plays, but there has to be a true impact. It came in just from one guy. So if you really want to take this game in Chicago and go back to being 2-2, a game that's definitely winnable. I know they're not the favorites in this game because they're on the road, but if you want to protect your leaky secondary, go and create pressure against the worst offensive line in the NFL, like
Yeah. And
in game changing plays.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I mean, you have to be a little bit more aggressive. They haven't been. Chris Shula, I heard from some of, Kirk Morrison and the Marco Farr talking about Chris Shula and the fact that he was going to send more pressure, and he hasn't done that. We'll see if he does it in this game. We saw um, both. The Colts and the Texans. The Miko Ryans, like if he sees a weakness, he's gonna exploit it. He blitz. I
Yeah.
believe he blitz Caleb Williams and this Chicago Bears offense 66% of the game, which is ridiculous. I think this is a game for Chris Shula to have to put up the pressure here. Run some throw some blitzes here, try to confuse the rookie because as we've seen right now, this is the time you before he figures things out. You don't let him sit back there and then kind of pick you apart like we saw with Brock Purdy. Go and put some pressure and throw some blitzes at Caleb Williams in this offensive line as you talked about, Gilbert.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you.
Yeah, for me, I go to the other side. I go to the Rams offensive line versus the Bears defensive line, and you know, this will be the first time this season where the Rams have the same offensive line. You're gonna have Alaric Jackson at left tackle, Logan Bruss at right guard. You'll have Bo Limmer at center. You'll have Kevin Dotson at right guard, and and Rob Havenstein at right tackle. Use those guys to go up against one of the where the Bears are really good, Gilbert, and is their secondary. It's going to be hard to attack this Bears defense through the air. The way you do it is you run the ball. What did you talk about when we were talking about the Bears and the Colts? You said they couldn't stop Jonathan Taylor
Yeah.
late in the game, and they're not great on up the middle. You run the ball, you use that offensive line to create holes to get Kyron Williams going in this game. And Stevon brought it up earlier. Like you use Kyron Williams in this offensive line. You're healthy now. This will be the second straight game. You have the same offensive line. This is where the weaknesses on this Bears defense is by running the ball. Commit to running the ball, Sean McVay, because I feel like that's going to be a player matchup to watch. It's going to be this offensive line against that defensive line of the Bears.
Yeah, they play well collectively, but they do have some weak spots, like you mentioned, the run game. And then, this Bear team defensively, they play better at home. That's when you were playing with Levis, so, but they played the Titans and they got a lot of turnovers. Jalen Johnson had an interception, and there was a pick six I think it was Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback. So they're gonna be at home. They're gonna be feeling good, and if you're able to kind of crush their soul by running the football very well, it's tough to pass on them. Like I mentioned, Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson. So it could be a long day for Stafford because he doesn't have his star wide receivers. But if Kyron's having a game like he did last week, it just opens up the whole playbook. It's going to make plays for Stafford. So, yeah, I could definitely see that offensive line being a critical part here for the Rams.
Yeah, and hopefully they can take advantage of it. And as we talked about, one of the things that Sean McVay has been really good at from the offensive standpoint is picking on a weakness of that team's defense and exploiting it. And hopefully he commits to the run in this game and he uses that offensive line to do so. All right, Gilbert, let's get to our keys to the game. We asked our viewers and listeners to give us theirs. And like I thought a lot of it, I some of it, we kind of agree with here. But go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, mine's easy, and we've been talking about it, but until they do it, I'm gonna keep talking about it. You got to protect the down the field. You got to be better as a passing defense. So, yeah, it's just because Caleb Williams is having a rough, start to his career, it doesn't mean he can't beat you down the field. He might give you opportunities for interceptions, and you got to make them count and make them pay for doing that. But he might get a couple on you because of your leaky defense. So again, DJ Moore. I know that Caleb Williams and DJ Moore aren't on the same page, but I remember seeing Justin Fields and DJ Moore light up a lot of teams last year down the field. I think there was that Thursday night football game, Victor, where you benefited from DJ Moore Against the Commanders. It was
No,
Commanders.
I got this.
Oh,
I
okay, you got
actually
destroyed.
went
Never
up
mind.
against Rudy. Rudy
Yeah,
had, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So it's the other way. I remember you were part of
yes,
that. So
yes,
obviously DJ Moore is capable of doing that. It's just he doesn't have the right quarterback right now. But maybe Caleb
right,
Williams has his breakout game because if you look at the stats, and and you didn't watch the game, you think, oh wow, Caleb had a good game with
yep.
the 300 and something passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions, but uh, if he's able to kind of build off of that and get confidence and beat you down the field, it could be a long day. And I got to see them do something before I even change my keys to the game.
Yeah, no, and that's spot on because as we talked about, that was our big storyline with this team is I think that's one of the big issues that they really need to fix going forward. They might get Darius Williams back next week. You bring in Witherspoon back. Hopefully he works out and they can start to kind of have a decent secondary. Nobody's asking them to be a top 15 secondary. They just need to be average, Gilbert, and stop giving up those big plays down the field. And I think if they can cut down on those, they have a chance to win more games going forward. For me, Gilbert, I'm gonna stick to what I said last week, and it has to do with Kyron Williams, and that is you need to lean on Kyron Williams. We saw run the ball with Kyron Williams because when you feed him, good things happen, Gilbert. We saw he got 3 touchdowns last week. He had the same amount of carries against San Francisco that he had in his first 2 games. And to the comments here, they're spot on. Stevan says, maybe give Blake Corum some run too. Michael Armenta says, I agree. Corum needs to get the ball too. I want to see 25 to 30 carries for these running backs. I know Ronnie Rivers is the running back too, and Blake Corum. I don't care how, if you have a rotation of running backs. Kyron Williams needs to get the bulk of them, and then it needs to be 25 to 30 in this game, as we talked about. We saw what Jonathan Taylor did to this defense late in the game. They were able to tire that defense out, and they were able to pull out the win. If you're going to go on the road on a 10 a.m. game and win this game, you're going to have to run the ball, especially with that offensive line. Look, if you ask any offensive lineman out there, whether it's high school, college, or pro, they'll tell you it's easier for them to run block than it is to pass block because you're going forward as opposed to going backwards, which is a lot harder for some people, for a lot of offensive linemen. So hey, you get these guys going. It's all up to our it's all up to McVay whether he wants to commit to the run. That was the plan. That's why they went out and signed the free agents that they did along the offensive line. Now go. I get it. You don't have the guys you wanted to in the first place, but you're gonna have your offensive line for a second straight week. As long as you have the same five, run the ball, commit to running the ball, and let that be what do some play action because like I said, the secondary for the Bears is legit, led by Jalen Johnson. They're going to shut down your secondary, your pass game. So try to run the ball on this team, Gilbert.
Yeah, last week I talked about, hey, like Kyron, you remember you were the guy that made this offense go. You're the reason
Yeah.
why the team took off and won those games at the down the stretch when you returned. So we wanted to see the old Kyron Williams. Obviously, it doesn't work without Sean McVay feeding him the football. Both things occurred. He gave him the ball and he made the most of his opportunity. So that's definitely with this banged up, group of wide receivers. That's probably your best way to win games and. We'll see what happens with the passing game because you're gonna need another performance from Tutu Atwell, who woke up last week.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have a lot of guys out there. Everybody went and picked up Tyler Johnson, Demarcus Robinson from the waiver wire in fantasy. And honestly, the most impressive guy was for me was Jordan Whittington because he was doing all the dirty work. He was the one, that was out there blocking, and that's what you need in this offense. Especially when you have Kyron Williams carrying the ball. All right, Gilbert, let's move on now to finish up things to our betting line here. The Rams are 3-point underdogs, and the over/under is 41. What is the right side of this line, Gilbert?
Yeah, I'll definitely take the 3 points here. The Bears haven't shown me anything to believe they could win by more than 3 points. It was a pick 'em, different story, but I know the Rams are on the road, and I do worry about that travel. 10 a.m. time for a team with young players besides Stafford. So that they could, it kind of feels like maybe they could be a little sluggish coming off a high with the 49ers, but the Bears haven't shown me too much, so I would take the points here. I hate that there's going to be a trendy pick for the Rams because nobody's high on the Bears and people are always high on the Rams. So, but I'll take the points here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would take the under in this game. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. It's not like frigid Chicago, like it's not supposed to be frigid Chicago like we've seen. But with these two teams, I just don't see them scoring a lot of points.
Hmm.
I did tell you guys to take the over in this game, and the over hit in that Rams 49ers game. And I'm with you. I take the Rams here in terms of the points here. But Gilbert, one thing that as we move on to our predictions, I just wanted to give you. I remember this, that as of a couple years ago, Sean McVay, when traveling to the East Coast. Now I know Chicago's in a, but it is a 10 a.m. game. He has a really good record. I believe he lost the one against the Ravens, but they did win the one against the Giants last season. So he's got about a 7-1 or 7-2 record overall in 10 a.m. games. So he does pretty well. He gets the team ready for those 10 a.m. games. So now give us your prediction. I don't know if that swayed you or not, but I just wanted to make sure I gave you that.
No, I just feel like I'm falling for a trap because I hate when I go with the public, and I think the Rams are going to be a trendy pick. But again, I haven't seen squat from the Bears. They got lucky to win week one. So this will be my first time picking the Rams here. I'm with you on the under. I think it's going to be a low scoring game because the Bears offense hasn't done much. And then the Rams will probably run the football a lot, which will kind of slow down the game. So I will go under and take the Rams. I'll go 19 to 16, a bunch of field goals, and it'll be close. I think the Rams pull it out. I don't feel good about it for them. It does feel like a trap game. You're coming off a high from a game you shouldn't have won. The injuries might catch up this week because you're not going off the home crowd. You're going on the road. That defense plays better at home. All these things here. But again, they can't score points offensively. And you might get burned, though, on the secondary for the Rams. But I think uh, it's just I got to see something from Caleb Williams. He's going to give them opportunities to get takeaways because he keeps throwing interceptions, he keeps pressing, he keeps panicking, and that could be good things for the Rams here.
Yeah, and force some turnovers. That would be nice. We
Yeah.
haven't seen a lot of those from the Rams, so that'll be something. Yes, please send us your scores. We have one here from Michael Armenta. He says Rams 31, Bears 20. So he's going with the over
Ooh,
there.
high
He's
scoring.
got a 51 points there scored in this game. And Gilbert, I kind of was going back and forth with this game because, as you talked about, one of the things that we've seen with the trends lately is, I thought the Rams would be favored in this game, and I'm with you. I don't like the fact that the Rams are not the favorites here. I thought about, okay, if the Rams are favorite, I'll probably pick the Bears, but because the bear the Bears are the ones that are the favorites, I'm also going with the Rams. We've seen a lot of the favorites this year have not done well at home either. Like, it's just been a crazy year. um, I think this game is gonna be a lot like that Giants game last season, where, remember how the Rams had to kind of hold on late. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be the same thing, where it's gonna be a unwatchable game, just as we talked about. It's gonna be one of those old school games where you just try to run the ball. Things are gonna be sloppy in this game, and I see it like a 20-17 game. I have the Rams winning by 3 here. I I I just think that Ram fans have to be, they have to know that this game is not going to be something, glorious to watch. It just seems like it's going to be one of those ugly games. And at the end of the day, as long as you win, you just get out of there and you're 2-2 and you're happy if if that's the way it goes. Because I just honestly don't think this is going to be. And watch, it will be. It'll be one of the most exciting games because that's usually the way things have been going. We say one thing. Although I did get the and it was more because of what we've been talking about with the trend that's been going on with the heavy favorites losing, and I just don't see it changing, Gilbert. I know we've talked about this in terms of a lot of the teams are going through their preseason right now, but it just seems like there's I think for the first time in a while, just because a lot of the quarter old like the really good quarterbacks have kind of transitioned out. I think that there is more parity now, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the upsets.
Yeah, I think there's something with Caleb Williams. It hasn't been pretty, but he's getting better, at least with the stats every week. The first week he had under 100 yards passing. The second week he had about 200 yards. The third week 300. So maybe this fourth game, he's seeing the field well, and maybe it leads to high scoring. Maybe he does punish the Rams in the secondary. Maybe this Kyron Williams led attack for the Rams leads to a lot of touchdowns because the Bears can't stop the run. It could definitely maybe be a quirky, high scoring game. But another trend in the NFL, a lot of the unders are hitting. I think somebody mentioned to me that on Sunday, only 3 games went over. Obviously, both Monday night games went over, but there was only 3 games that went over on Sunday. So, and I think that's because a lot of teams are have either a young quarterback or they didn't play their starters in the preseason. So I think maybe
Yeah.
week 4 could be an explosion. But I'm with you. I'm gonna go with an ugly game here, low scoring, and I think everybody's taking the Rams, and that's also not a good recipe for the Rams.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, and that's why I said I was kind of hoping that I was kind of hoping that the Rams would be the ones that would be favored, and I would have
Yeah,
been
that
more.
would be like a pick 'em or something, but no.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, Steve on as just as we leave here, Gilbert, before we go, Steve on says 27-10 Rams, so he's got the
Mm,
under there as well. And he
mm,
says he expects the Bears quarterback to really heavily to rely on Cole Kmet. Kmet's actually been one of the things I found out this week was that Cole Kmet has been the best tight end in fantasy through 3 weeks. So who knew?
it's not been Sam Laporte, I could tell you that for sure.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right,
but
Gilbert.
yeah,
So that does it for we've broken down this matchup between the 1-2 Rams and the 1-2 Bears. We're expecting a low scoring game. One more here from Scott from Iowa says Rams need to smash the gap. Bears have no chance. So there you go. Uh,
maybe Scott from Iowa is a Bears fan, 'cause I see a cubby on the profile picture.
yeah. Yeah. So there we go. So and Steve Austin, thanks guys. Thank you, Steve, for always checking in with us. We really appreciate all the comments from Scott C from Iowa. We got Steve on, Michael Armenta, James Wheelock, uh Ramily Ties. We have Happy Gilmore and our guy Daniel Calderon. So with that, Gilbert, we've done everything, to talk about this matchup between the Bears and the Rams. Hopefully the Rams come out on top. They get even at 2-2, and the season they can finally just get to right above water, and then they can, look forward to facing the I think the Packers come in if I'm
Yeah, I think you're right.
yeah. So but we'll get to that. First is the Chicago Bears. But Gilbert, let's get ready for Sunday and this matchup, 10 a.m. Do we know? Should we let them know, or do are we gonna figure out when we're gonna have the post game show?
I wanted to talk to you about it off camera, but if
Okay.
if you see me on, then most likely it would be 4:45.
Oh,
If
there we go.
Victor wants to do it solo, it will probably be after the game. I don't want to make
Yep.
the people wait, so I wanted to talk to Victor. Hey, do you want to make the people wait? Wait for me. Nobody needs my analysis. Feel free to go, but if not, either will be probably in the 4 p.m. window. But
Yeah, let's do 4 p.m. just because a lot of people, they like watching all the games, and then there's that little gap between, once you watch most of the games and then Sunday night football. It makes a lot of sense for people to come and join us, and whether it's a victory or a loss, you can come and either be happy or be sad about what happened on Sunday. So yes, join us in that 4 o'clock window between the last game of Sunday and Sunday night football. So make sure to check in with us for the post game show, and we'll break everything down that happened between the Bears and the Rams.
Yeah, so if you're getting antsy, yell at Victor. He's the one that's going to
Yes.
wait for me. But it's time to get going. Let's get to week 4. The Rams are headed to Chicago. We'll see how the game turns out. But on that note, ya nos vamos. Pues, vámonos.